Hi, welcome to the podcast. I am Football Barbie. I am going to be talking to you about the highest paid NFL quarterbacks, the top 20. According to ESPN, this was their article that I read, and then I just decided to do the statistics and all of the information about the players this way to give you a more of an informative video, but also like I'm a sports analysis in a sense where I'm giving you my opinion on what I think about the actual quarterbacks of the top 20. So, as an Eagles fan, we're going to start with, surprisingly enough, Jalen Hurts came in at the highest paid NFL quarterback of so far all time. He is getting $255 million. He signed a contract as a 5-year extension, and for the $255 million, he is going to be guaranteed $179.3 million of that $255. Now, I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty or the logistics of people's contracts and everything like that because the NFL has so much working into it, but we're going to give you some of the information about it. Now, surprisingly enough, the salary cap, though, hit for him getting $51 million for the year. You know, he did get a $23.3 million signing bonus, which does go over the length of the contract. That is counted as the guaranteed money and the $51 million for the year. The salary cap hit, though, for the Eagles is only going to be $4.8 million. He was drafted by the Eagles in 2020. So I personally believe that, even though he was a rookie, you can't expect a rookie to be perfect as they come off the bat. I, as an Eagles fan, really wasn't the biggest fan of Jalen Hurts the first 2 years. I know college football to here is a little definitely different for the NFL. I think that he kind of read like he was just scared of getting hurt, so he ran the ball at first, which I know is what he did in college, but he just seemed like he was running the ball when he was scared, and I think that his throwing accuracy wasn't the best either when he first started. I think that as of last season, he actually did improve. So I wanted to give you also some of the statistics along with that. But also part of his contract, he receives a $100,000 workout bonus. And we'll just see what happens with him for the season. For last year, he did miss 2 games because he was injured. So he did play 15 of the 17 games. So it didn't seem like only a handful of actual quarterbacks played all 17. Within those 15 games that he played, he managed to get 3,701 yards. So for somebody to do 15 games and get that's not bad. I think he still has much more room to grow as a quarterback. He did end up throwing 22 passing touchdowns. So he threw 22 passes for a touchdown. So not bad, but he is probably the highest, which is what I think it was, as 13 rushing touchdowns. So everybody knows that Jalen Hurts is more of a runner. He's a strong built guy. He has that going for him. He is fast. That was proven. So to have 13 rushing touchdowns, it's not bad. I don't think, though, he's personally going to be able to withstand the longevity of the league if he does keep doing all of these rushing yardages. He did have really high rushing yardages at 760 for last year, and he only actually threw 6 interceptions. So to only throw 6 interceptions, that's actually not bad in 15 games. So it's one almost every other or so game. So I definitely will be curious to see how Jalen Hurts does. So he is the number 1 person currently, unless anybody else ends up beating him. But I would be really surprised. I don't know if any other quarterbacks who would be possibly signed would, whether they deserve or not, but be able to beat the $255 million, so $51 million average over that 5-year contract. So as for number 2, we have Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers has been very controversial lately because he is from Green Bay. And I know a ton of people are Green Bay fans. And I feel like half their division wants him gone. They're just tired of having him in the division. I know every Chicago fan definitely wants Aaron Rodgers out of the league because if Aaron Rodgers does well, then they're going to probably be the bottom of their division. So Aaron Rodgers in 2022 for Green Bay signed a $150 million contract extension for 3 years. Of that $150 million, $101.4 million of that was actually fully guaranteed. So now the problem is Aaron Rodgers, I don't think really wants to be at the Packers anymore. He wants to, as it seemed, the Jets are trying to get him, but Green Bay would have such a dead cap that they're trying to work out negotiations with the Jets, so it seems. So it's going to be very interesting. I mean, I would love to see Aaron Rodgers go to the Jets. I think it would be something different. He just has to make sure that he has the weapons in place in order to see. So then we could actually tell whether age is really a factor, which I don't believe it is because Tom Brady played, in his 40s. There's plenty of quarterbacks who played in their 40s who still did really well. So, however, of that $150 million, $59.9 million is guaranteed if he does play for 2023. I mean, he does technically only get, $50.3 million, but he does have other things going for him within that. He does carry, though, which is a problem, a salary cap charge this year for $31.6 million. So Green Bay doesn't want to be stuck with the debt if he goes somewhere. So that's why they're trying to figure it out. You can't put Aaron Rodgers out, though, because he did win the MVP award in 2020 and 2021. Apparently, last season for 2022 was his worst season yet. Fewest yards thrown, which to me is kind of crazy because he threw for 3,695 yards. He did manage to play 15 of the 17 games. So being hurt, he only had 6 less yards than Jalen Hurts. So if that's his worst season, I mean, that's actually really good then. So he did have a lot of interceptions, though, at 12. But in a sense, he was playing hurt when he did. He had a broken thumb, he had injuries to his ribs and his knees during the season, according to ESPN. So he also did have 26 passing touchdowns. He had 12 interceptions, as I said. He had 1 rushing touchdown, and he had 94 rushing yards. I think that as the quarterbacks age and they earn this division in the league for so long, they kind of realize that you can't really run the ball so much and you can't really try to do these rushing touchdowns because at the end of the day, it's not good for your longevity. So we're just going to see what actually happens. I'd be really curious to see if he does go to the Jets. I've been really trying to pay attention to it, but there's just been no word of that yet. As for number 3 on the list, Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson was drafted by the Seahawks in 2012. He then, as of last year, went to the Denver Broncos. He signed a 5-year contract for $242.6 million. Of that, fully guaranteed $161 million, which is crazy. So, I mean, he did win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, so I feel like he did do very well. He is set to get $48.5 million this year, which brings him at number 3. He did get a $50 million signing bonus. And his base salary, technically, though, for 2023 is $8 million. However, I'm not really one to try to believe like the NFL football memes and everything, but Russell Wilson has not brought to the Broncos what he was playing with in Seattle. In a sense, it really did kind of look like he was blind at times, throwing the ball to his receivers. It just looked like somebody be open over here and he throw over there. And you're like, I don't really know what's going on right now. Why? So I know a lot of people of Broncos fans were really upset over how Russell Wilson played. People thought he was going to be really good. And then here he necessarily wasn't. His stats for last year. So he played 15 games as well. He had 3,524 yards. So not too bad. 16 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, and he had 277 rushing yards. But he did throw 11 interceptions. I think that's kind of a high amount. I mean, unfortunately, it sucks when the quarterbacks get penalized when I feel like the ball gets tipped or something like that. They really shouldn't have that. But who am I to say anything about the NFL? So let's just see how Russell Wilson plays for the 2023 year. I'll be very curious to see if he can actually start playing better, or has Russell Wilson kind of lost all hope? So it'll be interesting because he definitely isn't the Russell Wilson he was in Seattle. Now, number 4 on my list was kind of surprising. Kyler Murray for Arizona Cardinals. Now, I don't personally see him as a great quarterback. I don't know. Sorry, Cardinals, but I just think that he's not the best for this. So he signed a 5-year, $230.5 million contract in 2022 with the Cardinals. $29 million of that was a signing bonus. And he's set to get $46.1 million this year on paper. And $159.8 million of that was guaranteed money. So $159.8 million guaranteed over 5 years. Interesting. He was drafted by the Cardinals in 2019, so he's been with them ever since. So as for how he played 11 games. He was definitely out for some of them. He had 2,368 passing yards. So 11 games, 2,368, not a bad number. 14 passing touchdowns. I don't think that's really a lot for a quarterback. So, obviously it's not just the quarterback's fault for why their team didn't do so well. But he had 3 rushing touchdowns, 418 rushing yards, and he had 7 interceptions, which is not bad then, consider the fact that some people had 12 and he had 7. So let's see what happens with Arizona if he manages to stay healthy and not have any issues. Let's see if he can actually get things going, and hopefully Arizona is able to pick up some better players this year and do it. I personally miss Larry Fitzgerald. I thought he was one of the best players at his time for Arizona. I also really liked Kurt Warner back in the day. So we will see. They really need some good weapons this year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. As for number 5, Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson was signed with the Browns for the 2022 season for a $230 million fully guaranteed contract. However, he was suspended for the first 11 games due to that sexual allegations with the massage therapy or whatever back from the time he was in Houston. Now, I'm not really going to get into that. I wasn't there unless there's any physical proof, but that does kind of suck. So he did have an average annual salary this year of $46 million. And his base salary was technically like $1.16 million for this year. The cap hit, though, is $19.1 million. I know the Browns did restructure his contract, so they weren't so much over their salary cap. So that definitely helped them out. And I feel like, considering the fact that you were suspended, you kind of need to go with what your team's telling you if you don't want to be cut. So he was drafted in 2017 by the Texans, and he played with them up until last season. As for how he did last year, he only played 6 games, but in those 6 games, he got 1,102 yards, 7 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 175 rushing yards, and threw 5 interceptions. So he almost threw an interception for each game on average. I hope to see how he plays. I actually didn't mind him when he played for the Texans. I thought he did really well for the Texans. I thought they were a much better team when he was there. So I'm sure the Browns hoped that he would play with how he played for the Texans. But it's going to be interesting. Now for number 6, which is crazy because now people would think this is almost chump change, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, I feel like, is an absolutely amazing player. He signed with Kansas City. That's who drafted him. He signed a 10-year deal in the 2021 season for a $450 million contract extension. It has a $63 million fully guaranteed at signing, including a $10 million signing bonus. $141 million is guaranteed for injury, and a total of $477.6 million can become guaranteed based on the roster status. Now, his contract is interesting, and this is the only one that I really found out of the top 20 who had an interesting contract like this. I personally think that every player should have incentives built into their contract. It really makes people try harder, as long as somebody doesn't really become a ball hog or purposely injure somebody in the sense for their own, which then should be penalized. So in his contract, which he does get $45 million for this year at number 6. So in his contract, and every year starting as of last year, which he probably had a great year then since they won the Super Bowl. And after reading these statistics, as an Eagles fan, it really made me feel better about losing to them in the Super Bowl. I was there and watched it. It was upsetting, but at least I knew I lost to a really good team. So for his incentives, they're worth $2.5 million a year, apparently, which did start last year, as I said. He has to win the NFL MVP award. Then he gets $1.25 million and the AFC title game, which we all know they did last year in order to get to the Super Bowl, which is worth $1.25 million. He's been with the Chiefs since they drafted him in 2017, and then he's already won them 2 Super Bowls. They have my previous coach at Andy Reid, who I personally didn't think he did very well with us for the Eagles. Some people like him, some people don't. I didn't necessarily like him for the Eagles, but he's done really wonders for Kansas City. So for his stats, 5,250 yards for last year. First in the league by a lot. He did play all 17 games. He has 41 passing touchdowns, first in the league. 4 rushing touchdowns, 358 rushing yards, and 12 interceptions. But, I mean, if you're throwing for 5,250 yards and you did play all 17 games and you had 41 passing touchdowns, I mean, then 12 interceptions actually does sound better because clearly he was throwing a bunch. So I'm hoping that they don't go to the Super Bowl this year. And obviously I want to. I mean, I'd rather just give the underdogs a chance. If I'm obviously not going to be there, I'd rather an underdog, a team who hasn't been in the Super Bowl forever, go versus one that keeps just winning and dominating. But I think it's almost safe to say, in my opinion, that he's almost like the next Tom Brady. I mean, he's already won 2 Super Bowls in the time that he's been there. So not bad. I mean, I feel like Tom Brady just had really good luck, the way the Patriots worked and everything, but so be it. As for number 7 on the list, Josh Allen. I think Buffalo Bills had a really good season last year. I think Josh Allen is definitely worth all the money he gets. You know, I don't feel like people necessarily pay as much attention to them, but for Buffalo Bills, he did sign a $258 million 6-year extension starting in the 2021 season. $150 million of that is guaranteed for injury, with $100 million for fully guaranteed at signing. So this year he gets $43 million. His salary cap charge is $18.6 million, and he's been with the Bills since they drafted him in 2018. As for 2022 stats, he had 4,283 yards. He was 7th in the league with the yardage, so you could tell that he did really well. He played 16 games, so he did miss technically 1, so still really well then. 35 passing touchdowns. He's tied for 2nd with that number in the league for last year. He had 7 rushing touchdowns, 762 rushing yards. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a lot of those yards too, but I mean, he's definitely doing a great quarterback. 14 interceptions, but I think if you throw a bunch and you just happen to have a lot of passing touchdowns, you're probably more guaranteed to have more interceptions. I don't think they really should be counted so much against him. So I'm kind of rooting for the Buffalo Bills to do well. I think that, you know, they're deserving of a Super Bowl one of these years. So let's see what happens. Now, as for number 8 in the list, Matthew Stafford. Now, sorry, I really didn't pay that much attention to the Detroit Lions, why Matthew Stafford was on the Detroit Lions. He was drafted by the Lions in 2009. And then he comes here and he signed a 4-year, $160 million contract with the Rams that started for the 2022 season. Of that $160 million, $60 million was a signing bonus. $40 million is his average salary for this year. $63 million was guaranteed at signing. He did play 12 seasons with the Lions, and then, like I said, then he came here. So we'll see if he ends up bringing the Rams. The Rams have already won a Super Bowl, and then they get Stafford. I thought it was very interesting that Stafford and Goff basically just switched places. I thought Jared Goff was phenomenal. So it's very interesting that the demand is just switch teams. It's like normally one person goes one place and one person goes somewhere else, but I wonder how the Rams fans felt about that. That's the question of the hour. So his stats for last year, 9 games played. He missed apparently the last 7 due to a spinal cord contusion. So that really sucks. And I hope that he's recovering well. He did have 2,087 yards for the season, 10 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 9 rushing yards. Not a lot. 8 interceptions, So we'll see. Maybe he'll bring better luck to the Rams. Hopefully he manages to recover from his injury, because that definitely does not sound like a fun injury. Now, number 9 on the list, Dak Prescott. Now, I don't think that Dak is a bad quarterback at all. Personally, the Cowboys, I think they can be definitely a good team. As an Eagles fan, we definitely cheer against them in the regular season because we always want to be the one that goes to the playoffs. So they definitely had a chance, and this year was very interesting with the Giants, Dallas, and Eagles being almost neck and neck at one point for who was going to be the top person in the league. It did get very interesting, and I'm just happy as anything because a few years ago, we were the worst division in the league, and this year, we managed to pull through, and we almost had all 3 people go to the wild card spots, or all three of our 4 teams managed to almost make it in. So he did sign a 4-year, $160 million contract starting in the 2021 season with the Cowboys. The average annual salary for him is $40 million. $66 million was a signing bonus. $126 million was guaranteed. So that's good. So 4 years, $126 million guaranteed. That's not bad. He was drafted in 2016 by the Cowboys, so he's been with them ever since. Personally, I did not like Romo. So I feel like I like Dak a little better than Romo. I think they're a little more deserving. So he did play 12 games. It's fortunate when these players get hurt. So he did technically miss 5. So with only playing 12 games, he had 2,860 yards. He had 23 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, but he had 15 interceptions. That's a lot, I feel like. When you only played in 12 games and you have 15 interceptions, I think some of those were by the Eagles. I think we had got some of those interceptions. Just saying. But he had 182 rushing yards. So I think that kind of needs to improve. Apparently he had more like throwing yards or something by whatever percentage, or there's something about it as to why he had so many interceptions. But personally, I don't think that 15 interceptions with only that amount of yards is good. I mean, like I said, obviously it's not always a quarterback's fault, but that I definitely think needs to change for them. They really do need to have better defense or something. They got to fix that. That's a problem. So let's see what happens with Dak. Hopefully everybody comes back healthy and there's no issues for him, but still go Eagles. As for number 10, Daniel Jones, he's the other quarterback in the league with the Eagles. He plays for the Giants. He signed a 4-year contract with the Giants for $106 million this year. Now, I think the Giants, they did way better than they have been in the past so many years. So I'm happy for them. It's nice not to have a horrible division. So, the Giants, I feel like, did very well. He does also have an average annual salary this year of $40 million on paper. $82 million was guaranteed at signing. He does carry a salary cap hit, though, this year of $21 million. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, he has been with the Giants since he was drafted by them in 2019. So as for his stats, so this isn't bad for 16 games played. So he only missed 1 game. He had 3,205 passing yards, 15 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns, 708 rushing yards, and 5 interceptions. So that's way better. 5 interceptions for, 16 games. That's way better of a number. Like I said, it's not always a quarterback's fault, but at the end of the day, 5 interceptions is way better than 15. So Daniel Jones was doing something right. It's going to be interesting to see how he keeps playing. I'm sorry, but I did not like Eli. I absolutely love watching Eli on ESPN every Monday night with Peyton. I think it's one of the best things the NFL has done for their Monday night games. I absolutely love when they come on. It's the most funniest commentary. But I don't know. I just personally, as an Eagles fan, didn't like when Eli Manning played. So Daniel Jones, let's just see what he's completely capable of. Like I said, he signed his contract this year. It's 4 years. So we'll see what happens. Now, number 11. As living in Vegas, I did work at the Raider Stadium as a beer vendor. Derek Carr. Now, I thought Derek Carr was okay. Personally, he signed with the New Orleans Saints this year. For the 2023 season for 4 years. So I think they're desperate for a quarterback after Drew Brees left. When Drew Brees was gone, I feel like the Saints were hurting. The Saints were dominant. Brees won them a Super Bowl. And now all of a sudden, now they're getting Derek Carr. I don't think they need to be able to find their footing with a quarterback. He has an average annual salary for the Saints with a $37.5 million for this year. The 4-year contract, $150 million contract, like I said, with the Saints. He had $100 million of the contract, though, is guaranteed. So that's good for him. I'm happy that he's getting money. $60 million was fully guaranteed at the actual signing. He does have a no trade clause part of his contract. So that's going to be interesting. The salary cap charge for him for the 2023 year for the Saints is $7.2 million. So he was drafted by the Raiders in 2014 until now. The Raiders kind of benched him for the last 2 games. I mean, personally, like I said, I think he was just okay for the Raiders. I'm sure the Raiders really did want a better, quarterback. So what are they going to do? So like I said, he played 15 games, benched for the last 2. He had 3,522 yards within those 15 games, 24 passing touchdowns. So that's good. I mean, they did get the Raiders, but the poor Raiders, are dying to make the playoffs. They want to make the playoffs. So I'm very curious to see what Jimmy Garoppolo's on the list, but I'm very curious to see how Jimmy Garoppolo does now for the Raiders being here. He had 102 rushing yards for last season and 14 interceptions. 14 interceptions for 15 games. I think that's still extensively a lot. Like I said, unless you're like Patrick Mahomes and you're throwing a whole bunch and you have a whole bunch of yards, to have that many interceptions is just way too much. So it'd be interesting to see how he does with the Saints. Stuff like that, when these people just move, sometimes I'm so bummed that, like, when we lose players that I really liked, really did like CJ Gardner. Like, I thought he was a great safety and he got us so many sacks and he did really well until he got hurt versus the Redskins. But what are you going to do? Like I said, it's football and people move and I have no control over anything. I just enjoy watching it. So let's see what happens. As for number 12 on the list, Kirk Cousins. Now, I don't really necessarily, pay attention to Kirk Cousins too much, but he's got some really good stats for last year. So you got to give it up to Kirk Cousins. I feel like he just kind of stays out of the limelight. The Vikings were a really good team last year. It was really kind of a fight for a moment in their division. So let's see what happens. Minus the Bears. The Bears, they need more players. So for Cousins, he signed a 2-year contract extension with the Vikings, which was worth $66 million starting for the 2021 season. His average annual salary for this year is $35 million. When he signed, he had 1-year deal left on his contract worth $30 million, which made his total package worth $96 million over 3 years. He did agree to a 1-year contract extension for 2022 for the 2023 season for $35 million. He has a no trade it clause for the 2023, and there was added 2 additional void years for the salary cap purposes. But of that money that he got, he was fully guaranteed $70 million. So that's really good. So he actually has been around for quite a bit. So he was drafted in 2012 by the Commanders, and he was with them until 2017. And then he came to the Vikings in 2018. So he's been playing with them ever since. His salary cap for this year is set to be $20.2 million. So that's not bad. We'll just see what happens and how well that goes down. He did play all 17 games. So I feel like when somebody plays all 17 games, and I feel like that means if you really want to be up there in terms of a quarterback, you really do need to have some yards under your belt, which he did. He had 4,547 yards. Now, I didn't realize that Kirk Cousins apparently was this good, but you know what? I guess he is that good because he was 4th in the division for the yardage. He also had 29 passing touchdowns last year, 2 rushing touchdowns, 97 rushing yards, and 14 interceptions. Now, like I said, personally, in my opinion, if you're a quarterback and you throw a lot, and you have a lot of yards to show for it, then I think it's okay to have more interceptions. But if you hardly have any throwing yards, you're not throwing, and you just can't, for some reason, find your players, and you're just getting interception after interception, we got a problem. We need to fix that. But 14 interceptions and 4th overall in the league last year, for yards, that's fine with me. I would completely take that as fine. Now as for Jared Goff. Like I said, I was a fan of Jared Goff. I thought he played really well for the Rams. He said he won him a Super Bowl. So Jared Goff originally signed a 4-year contract extension with the Rams starting for the 2019 season. So the extension is worth $134 million over those 4 years. His average annual salary for this year is $33.5 million. He received $57 million, which was fully guaranteed at signing. But then he was traded to the Lions for the 2021 season. He officially carried on the Rams salary cap of $34.95 million for the 2021. The Lions converted apparently $20 million of his 2021 salary into a signing bonus. So I'm sure they needed to in order to help their own salary cap. So the salary cap charge for the Lions this year for Goff is $31 million. He was drafted in 2016 by the Rams, so he was with them ever since until he got traded to the Lions. Yes, I just said it's very odd that Matthew Stafford and Goff literally just switched places. Like, I wonder how that conversation went down. Like, hey guys, I think you just want to trade quarterbacks. Like, not really sure how that went down. Okay, so he did really well though for the Lions last year, and I think that the Lions, their numbers were obviously, they had a much better record last year than they have in a long time. So clearly having Goff, obviously like I said, not the only player on the team, but clearly having Goff really helped. He played all 17 games. So within that 17 games, 4,438 passing yards, 6 in the league last year. 0 rushing yards. So he's just a thrower. He's not really a person that's going to rush. That's fine. He had 29 passing touchdowns. He had 73 rushing yards, and he had 7 interceptions. So that's really good. In my standard, that puts him towards the top with his statistics from last year. That's really good. Like I said, it helps when you play obviously more games because you never know, like somebody who missed 3, 4, 2, whatever, how many games they missed, where they actually would have ended up being. Now, I think one of the most interesting people for the up next, number 14, is Lamar Jackson. His contract situation is very interesting. So I didn't realize that he apparently wasn't making that much money with the Ravens. Now, Jackson signed a 4-year contract with the Ravens in 2018. He received $8 million in guarantees, including a $5 million signing bonus. Now that looks like a joke compared to literally today's standards. He was drafted by the Ravens, like I said, in the 2018. No fully guaranteed money. But so this is what happened. I guess apparently the Ravens now want Lamar Jackson to come back. And they want him to stay. So he's supposed to get $32.4 million for the 2023 season if he plays with the Ravens. The Ravens offered Jackson $133 million at signing for 3 years. That's really good to me, if you ask me. $175 million if he got injured, $200 million screening guarantee if he's on the roster on the 5th day of 2026. But Jackson got placed the non-franchise tag, so he can talk to other teams. He doesn't have an agent. I guess he's trying to do this without an agent, so it's just making it tricky. If he apparently agrees to an offer from another team, the Ravens have 5 days to match it, or they can receive the first 2 round picks from the other team. The Ravens apparently have till mid-July to sign Jackson to a contract extension. If the 2 sides can't agree, Jackson will play on the $32.4 million franchise tag. So 2022 stats for Jackson. Now, he only played 12 games. I think this is one thing too, with him with Hurts. When these quarterbacks rush the ball constantly and you get these passing touchdowns and these rushing touchdowns and, when they just do a lot of running, I think you're more guaranteed to possibly get hurt. And that's definitely the risk they take with that. I think these people need to be better on their yards, like their throwing and everything. But definitely that's the way to get intercepted, though. So he did play the 12 games. He had 2,242 yards for those 12 games, 17 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 764 rushing yards. Clearly a quarterback who runs. And 7 interceptions, as you said. If you're not going to run more, you're going to have less chance to get intercepted, hopefully. So I'm super curious what's going to happen to Lamar Jackson, because if Lamar Jackson, I don't know what Baltimore's doing in a situation. Does Baltimore need to get a new quarterback maybe in the draft? What's going to happen? If Lamar Jackson does go elsewhere, who are they going to have as their quarterback? So number 15 on the list, Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill, I don't really know too much about Tannehill. but he did sign a 4-year contract for $118 million starting for the 2021 season with a $20 million signing bonus. $91 million of that was guaranteed. So he signed with the Titans. $29.5 million he gets this year as his salary. He got a $62 million guaranteed at signing. He was drafted by the Dolphins in 2012 and played with them to the end of the 2018 season. Then he went to the Titans. So as for last year, he played in 12 games. Of those 12 games, he had 2,536 yards, 13 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 98 rushing yards, and 6 interceptions. So I think that being with the Titans, I think that Tennessee has dominated plenty of times in the past. I'm not really sure how really great Tannehill is as a quarterback. Maybe he just hasn't hit his stride yet. I'd be curious to see if he's able to play more games, how well he actually does. I do think the Titans, too, need to be able to have the weapons in order for quarterbacks to succeed. So we'll see, as a Titans fan, let's see what happens with your team. Number 16 on the list, Geno Smith. Now, like I said, I liked Russell Wilson when he played for the Seahawks. I thought he did very well with the Seahawks. But Geno Smith seems like he's doing very well with the Seahawks. And I think that the Seattle is happy with him. He signed a 3-year, $75 million contract with the Seahawks for the 2023 season. $40 million in guarantees, of which $27.3 was guaranteed at signing. He was originally drafted in the Jets in 2013. The salary cap charge for the 2023 season for him is $10.1 million. He is set to make $25 million for the 2023 season. So he did play with the Jets originally from 2013 when he was drafted to 2016. Then he went to the Giants in 2017. Then apparently the Chargers in 2018. And now he's been with the Seahawks since 2019. Like last year, I thought he did great. Maybe he hadn't hit his stride up until then, but technically Russell Wilson was still playing. So, as a backup quarterback, and now he's playing as prime, he's put up numbers. So for playing all 17 games, like I said, if you play all 17 games, so you really should have your numbers up, which he did too. So for 4,282 yards, he was 8th in the league. 30 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 366 rushing yards, and 11 interceptions. I feel like there should be a number. Like if you hit over this many yards, then this many interceptions is okay. But, if not, whatever the case may be. So like I said, I thought he did great. I'm excited to see what Geno Smith has to offer for the season. Personally, my favorite player who's been on Seahawks is DK Metcalf. I think that man is a beast. The first time I recognized him was when the Eagles were going in the playoffs in the 2018 and technically 2019, in the year of the playoffs with the 2019 early season. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. When I watched him play the Eagles, and I just never forget, I'm like, who is this person? The Eagles could not even score. Metcalf was just an animal, and he's so fast. I've watched him in videos be 10 yards behind somebody and just super catches them. And you're just like, damn, he's fast. So anyway, side note, it's my favorite player in the Seahawks. So interesting, Geno Smith. I'm really curious to see how he's going to do for the Seahawks for the 2023 season. Now, number 17, interesting. I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to become Raiders fans because Jimmy Garoppolo, he's known to be one of the hottest, apparently, quarterbacks in the league. So he was drafted in Patriots in 2014. Then he played with them for 2016, for 49ers, 2017 to 2022, which is, I think, how everybody basically does know Jimmy Garoppolo is playing the 49ers. The 49ers were known to be such a great team. So I think he did well. And now he got traded, or now he's at the Raiders. So I'm happy for that. That would be definitely worth to go see a game of him playing for the Raiders. I'm excited to see that. He did sign a 3-year, $72.5 million contract with the Raiders. The contract contains a $45 million in guarantees, of which $33.75 million is fully guaranteed at signing. Average annual salary this year is $24.3 million. It does say in each year of the contract, there are per game bonuses worth up to $1.53 million. Like I said, these bonuses and these incentives, I think that should be in every player's contract. There should be definitely penalties if somebody purposely tries to hurt or do something to somebody else. But these incentives to me are so awesome. Just gives these people more to fight for. Like, I feel like at the end of the season, some of these people start drowning out. But if you have an incentive, you're going to want to try to hit that. So, yeah. Another $4.5 million in incentives are available based on the team's success and playing time. The Raiders just want to win. So they brought in Garoppolo. Let's see what happens. But the Raiders just want to win. And, this incentive, I think that's a great incentive. I would want that incentive as a player. I think in sales, that's the best way to have incentives for your people. So for last year, he only did play 11 games. He got hurt for the 49ers. So obviously for the 49ers, with 11 games played, 2,437 passing yards, 16 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 33 rushing yards, and 4 interceptions. So Garoppolo, people know that Garoppolo is a great quarterback. He can put up some numbers. So I'm pretty sure all the Raider fans are going to be very curious to see how he does. Personally, I wonder if they're happier now that Carr is no longer on their team. So please feel free to comment and I need this information, and I will get back to you as much as possible. Please subscribe. I'm going to be talking about the NFL draft next. So number 18 on the list, Trevor Lawrence. He was drafted in 2021 by the Jaguars. Now, actually, I don't really watch college football, but I did watch that championship game where he won it the year previously. So happy for him for that. I think he's going to have to prove himself these rookie years if he wants to get a big contract. He signed his rookie contract for the 2021 season, and the value was for $36.8 million, fully guaranteed for 4 years. His salary cap charge is for this year $10 million. He does get $9.2 million this year. So his stats for last year, he did well. The Jaguars, they want to win too. These people just want to win. These people who haven't been winning, they just really want to win. And he managed to get them to the first round of the playoffs. That's really good. Oh, he has managed to get them to the playoffs. I think they actually might pass one round. Somebody can comment and let me know. So he said he played all 17 games. He had 4,113 yards, 25 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns, 291 rushing yards, and 8 interceptions. So clearly, I feel like the Lawrence has a lot of potential. I think that, it's going to be really good to see what he's capable of. He did very well in college, and he's not doing too bad. I think last year wasn't as great. I'm sorry, not last year. His first year wasn't as great, but I think last year he was able to definitely prove himself that he's trying and he's up there doing everything that he can to help his team win. So number 19 on the list, Joe Burrow. So he was drafted in 2020 by the Bengals. He signed a 4-year, $36.2 million contract with the Bengals in 2020, including a $23.9 million signing bonus. His average annual salary is $9 million. It's sad to see somebody go from 51 to 9. You have quarterbacks at 51 and you have quarterbacks at 9. But, Jalen Hurts, took him to a Super Bowl. So he does have an option for the 5th year contract and for his 5th year of his contract, and it is still pending. So for last year, he played 16 games. So this is where it shows you that the Bengals are a contender, and he does have really good numbers. I personally think then with these numbers for last year that he's definitely worth way more. So 4,475 yards for last season, 5th in the league. He had 35 passing touchdowns, which he tied for 2nd. 257 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Like I said, if you have 12 interceptions and you have that many yards, great. So by those numbers, to me, I'm a numbers person. And by those numbers, Joe Burrow seemed like he is a great quarterback. He did well. I think that people don't give him enough credit. So I'm going to be really curious to see how the Bengals do for the 2023 season. I think that they should do well, and I hope he does end up getting paid more money when his contract's up, because the Bengals would be a fool to lose that. So, obviously, unless he's going to be too greedy and the Bengals can't afford it, then whatever. So last on the list, Zach Wilson. I'm sorry, I really don't know much about the Jets. I don't really pay attention to the Jets. The Jets haven't been completely great in a very long time. you have Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's up here for the 20th spot. Drafted in 2021 by the Jets. His contract is a 4-year deal worth $35.1 million, all of which is guaranteed, includes a signing bonus of approximately $22.9 million. It does include an option for a 5th year for 2025. $8.8 million is what he is getting for the 2023 season. So his stats last year, he played 9 games. He missed in what? Oh my God, I can't think. 10 games? No, wow. 8 games. Whew. Caffeine. 8 games. He missed 8, played 9. So of those 9 games he actually played, he had 1,688 yards, 6 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 102 rushing yards, and 7 interceptions. Now, if you play 9 games, I'm sorry, and you have 7 interceptions, that's showing weaknesses within your team. That's a lot. Like, you shouldn't be having almost an interception for every single game that you played. And, not by those numbers. I don't really think, I wish there could be some kind of formula that you could figure out, like what the average is. I'm sure there is, but I don't want to try to figure that out. So I still want to see Aaron Rodgers go to the Jets. I think a lot of people will tune into the Jets if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets. And I think the Jets desperately need a great quarterback. I don't think Zach Wilson is bad by any means. I just think he hasn't caught in a stride yet. I mean, he was only drafted in 2021. So, he's still kind of a rookie. He's still in his younger years of football, obviously. So, it'll be interesting to see. So, that is it. That is the top 20 highest paid NFL quarterbacks. I'm going to be very curious. Please, like I said, let me hear comments. I will respond back to as many possible comments as I can. The next video that I am talking about will be the 2023 NFL draft. I can't wait for the draft. I love the draft. Now, personally, my favorite time of the year, besides the off-season craziness with football, is when the schedule is released in the middle of May, because then I start planning my football games for the season. As an Eagles fan, I've really been trying to go to more and more of the games during the season. I have a plan to go to at least 3 or 4 games of the Eagles. So obviously against other teams, my goal is to go to every football stadium in life. So I did manage to go to 5 football games last year for the Eagles, one of them being a Super Bowl. I paid for my ticket. I'm going to kick myself if I don't go to this game. Obviously, they lost to Kansas City, but that is what it is. Like I said, after reading Patrick Mahomes' stats, I feel better. Would have been great to celebrate the Eagles win. Of course it would have been. But at the end of the day, like I said, this is football, and anything can happen in football. If we would have got the ball back, you never know what would have actually happened. That alleged holding call, who knows? It's up to the ref's discretion. But, so yeah, keep tuned. Please like, share, subscribe, and yeah, please comment. I would love to actually see it. I'm going to be trying to put a video out at least every week. And then when I go to a games, I'll probably have 2 videos out. I'll have like a vlog of the game, and I'll have all the information of the game, like how much I paid, this and that, whatever the case may be, where I sit. My best friend Jason goes with me from home. He's got season tickets to the Eagles. I'm going to have to bring him on here at one point. We do plan on going to the Tampa game this year and possibly Kansas City, or definitely going to go to SoFi, and I'm going to go to a home game. I just got to figure out the schedule first to figure out what I can exactly do. So please have fun. Enjoy the draft, and I will post a video up for the draft on Thursday morning. So everybody who wants to do that, pay attention, and I'll give you all the viewpoints on the draft. So that's what's next. And then I'll talk about after the draft. So I'm going to keep putting these videos out, though. I'm going to do running backs after the draft's over. I'm going to probably do the top 20 running backs and what's going on with that. So I'm going to keep doing that, the teams, and then I'm going to do season weekly recaps when football is going on. Because I'm telling you, I'm the type of person that screams at the television. Like, you watch me during a football game, I'm probably highly entertaining, because not only do I know my stuff, but I will literally scream at the television. And if we're losing, then I'm very quiet. I'm like, so yeah.